This resolution sends a very clear message that the international community would no longer tolerate impunity, that the international community stands for justice, that the international community and our multilateral system we have erected, no matter how long it takes, the day of reckoning will come. And so all of us as leaders should be mindful of our actions and our policies. That once we violate the rights of others, once we engage in impunity, in acts of injustice, the day of reckoning will come. To me, that is a very, very profound message that the UN is sending to the world today.
Hello, everyone.
Someone needs.
That's the end of that. Just a short little clip. Um, how's it going, everybody? Abby, you ready? Sorry to bring you up on
Yeah,
stage.
I was trying to bring back the. I didn't want to see it. This.
We're a little
I
distracted.
was trying to bring back the vote.
You want to bring back the?
I was trying to bring back the vote so they could see it
Yeah,
again, but
then the video goes to the next thing automatically.
yeah, automatically.
But you maybe could still
Maybe
just
I need to
back
switch
it up and refresh. All good. So how's it going, everybody? Good to see you, Extra Bulla and CBC voter, Eggs D. I saw you had some comments in the Discord there. I hadn't noticed because I've been kind of ignoring the social media today so I can do the research. So hopefully we'll have a better show for you today. I will check out your what your comments are about, and I'll get back to you after the show. Thank you for engaging in the discussion with us, whether it's live on Tuesday or in the Discord. I recognize not everyone's preferring to be a public speaker. I myself don't exactly, as you can maybe hear me stuttering a little bit right now or whatever, I'm not exactly super fond of being a public speaker myself. So
What changed me was the pandemic. I had to work from home on the camera. I worked from home at IBM, but we didn't have to be on camera to do so. But now, I mean, a lot of companies want you to be on camera. So I had to force myself to look at myself on camera, and it was very awkward, and it just didn't, it felt weird. It felt like it was I don't know, grandizing or something. I always liked being behind the camera, like when I had my TV show. I produced it, but I was never in front of the camera. So, yeah, I just eventually kept having to do it, and I got used to it. So,
yeah, well, I'm the same way about that. I would, if I had it my way more, I would have preferred to be behind the scenes the whole time, and maybe have other people do this part where they're on screen. But I found I was doing a lot of research before I was really engaging with anybody, even in the chats and stuff. And I just got to this point where I was intaking all this information, not really like outputting any of it. And that was actually limiting my ability to further my understanding of things. And I just recognized there's more of a selfish waste of time as far as like the point of knowledge is to pass it on as opposed to just like hoard it. So the more that you learn, unless you're going to find a way to make it valuable to the community around you, you're not exactly learning for the right reasons. So I kind of had a shift in my mindset, and I also felt I still have this desire to get out of the restaurant industry, but I don't really have much other skills. So I was trying to develop some, but when you're your own boss, maybe you don't have the best discipline.
So Jacqueline, I sounded very timid at first, very shy and timid and unsure of myself because I just knew people were like staring at me. You know what I mean? Which is weird because when you're talking to someone in person, you know that they're staring at you, but it's not like you could see what they're seeing in real time. I think that's what makes it so overwhelming at first.
It's like a blind conversation. Like you can see us, but we can't see you. One-way mirror. What's up, Bold Man Barker? Jacqueline, good to see you guys. So do you want to read the article underneath the video that we're sharing about as far as to what to get started, or you had a video that you're talking about we can move to after that? I just thought this was the top of the news stack today, something totally worth talking about, especially because part of our conversation on Tuesday was about capitalism and racism and slavery and the nature of the chicken or the egg sort of thing. And then the next day I wake up and I see in my Twitter feed that this yet another UN resolution showing the true colors of the US and Israel and Ukraine or actually this time it was Argentina. But, there's certain recurring actors.
There was a lot of them.
Yes, and the EU. So maybe I think I got it here. I could call up the, share my screen. I got the vote that you were talking about. So of course,
Yeah.
it's the same gang of criminals that are blocking democratic progress. Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
The champions of democracy are the ones who won't let it happen. So as all the votes in yellow here is the EU.
You gotta close that thing at the bottom.
Right. What thing is that?
You see it says close above the third video?
Nope.
So you have a list of videos at the bottom. Above the one to the right, it says close.
When I go back to StreamYard, I can see it, but when I go to the tab that I'm sharing, I don't see it because I went full screen. But now I have to go on. There we go. So that better?
Yep.
And now we can't really get rid of this AP logo, but the entire world voted in favor of reparations for slavery, and then the white Western countries unanimously either twiddled their thumbs and acted like, oh, I don't know, no comment, bro, or they outright were bold enough to say, hey, this is unfair. This is unfair. I don't know why I guess Argentina is like completely dick-whipped by Trump because of Milei, and we know Israel, right? So completely unsurprising. But the historical record.
Milei and Bibi are really good friends.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising to me.
Yeah. So here's the. It's not really I guess it's longer than we want to get into. It's not really much more to say, right? The vote in the 193 member world body was 123-3 with 52 abstentions. Argentina, Israel, and the United States were the three members voting against the resolution. United Kingdom and all 27 members of the European Union were among those that abstained.
Egg D says, plus the honorary Aryans, Japan. There's a lot of Rastas in Japan. I was shocked to know that.
That's funny.
But I think most of them migrated to New York City.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, as far as Rastas and Zionism, they have because of their religious bias, I think that they have a soft spot for Israel in the Rastafarian community, potentially. It's something I haven't exactly done the research on, but I did enough of looking into it to see that at least before all of this genocide, there was some in the Rastafarian community in Jamaica and whatnot. Maybe Bob Marley himself a little bit, trying to look for ways to mediate the apartheid. Try and talk them down, see if they can have reason with them.
Bob Marley was very instrumental in that, and they were using him, of course. But when did this vote happen? It happened yesterday or something? Jacqueline's asking.
Let me see. UN General Assembly on Wednesday adopted
Wednesday.
adopted a resolution declaring the trafficking of enslaved Africans the greatest crime against humanity and calling for reparations as a concrete step towards remedying historical wrongs. The resolution also urges the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural items, including artworks, monuments, museum pieces, documents, and national archives, to their countries of origin without charge. While the
There's someone new here, by the way.
Oh yeah, I noticed that.
Hiya.
What's up?
Welcome.
A little bit of teetotaler, maybe. Canada Dry all day. It's all good. Sober comrades, welcome. So while the United States opposes the past wrongdoing of the transatlantic slave trade and all other forms of slavery, allegedly, it does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. The United States.
Wait, what? Say that again?
So the deputy U.S. ambassador said it does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. I didn't really think that the international law actually existed at the time. The United States, this is Rich, also strongly objects to the resolution's attempt to rank crimes against humanity in any type of hierarchy, he said, because if you do that, guess who's at the top? The assertion that some crimes against humanity are less severe than others objectively diminishes the suffering of countless victims and survivors of other atrocities throughout history. So, the fact that they are you're muted, but the fact that they're child murderers and rapists, whatever, it should not be considered worse than if you are like a car thief and a marijuana salesman. You know what I mean?
But if everybody else got reparations, that's interesting that they make that statement, because you are effectively saying that this crime against humanity is less than the other crimes against humanity. Like you're already saying it.
You're not saying anything. This is completely bankrupt kind of whatever sophistry, But that's the thing. People have to, in order to understand the U.S. Over the past like 40, 50 years, at the very least, it's not quite from the beginning, but since like the end of World War II, they've been the champions of human rights and democracy, apparently, right? But that's like their soft power strategy of imperialism, and it's really quite transparent when you look at it that way. There's objectively no reason to reject that framing, that thesis of how the American empire functions, but for whatever reason, people like to give the benefit of the doubt beyond reason. So we don't need to share any more of this like article, because this is not exactly anything that was going to get anywhere anyways. Did you have that video you wanted to get to?
Sure.
But what was we need to preface it, or?
It's just a news article about what happened.
All right.
I mean, I think they kind of get the point. So
I
don't know if it's necessary.
If we want to skip it, then what would we go to next? Did you have something? Because I put in the title "Going Ghana," so I was doing a little bit of a focus on Ghana. Maybe I'll find there's an article that said something about it was the Ghana delegate who proposed this resolution. I just have to find the right source. Maybe just you could play the video for now while I look for the right link.
I thought was really interesting.
You're cutting out. Can you say again?
Interesting with a comment. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, okay.
Ghana straight the fight against slavery. What you just heard is not just performance. It's a political signal from Ghana that this fight is about identity, history, and now accountability. Minutes later, the mood quickly changed inside the UN halls. Ghana's President, John Mahama, took to the podium with a message that goes far beyond the celebration.
There's no such thing as a slave. There were human beings who were trafficked and then enslaved by people who believed they could own those human beings as chattels, as their personal property.
But this is not just about the past. John Mahama is linking history to what he says is happening right now. He accuses the United States under Donald Trump of normalizing the erasure of Black history. He points to a series of moves by US administration that Trump calls anti-American. The timing of this attack is not accidental. Ghana is leading a global coalition. African, Caribbean, and global South nations have aligned to pass a UN resolution that seeks to formally recognize the transatlantic slave trade as one of history's greatest crimes against humanity. But more than that, Ghana says what they want is formal apologies and reparations from the West that they never received.
The perpetrators of the transatlantic slave trade are known. The Europeans, the United States of America. We expect all of them to formally apologize to Africa and to all people of African descent. After the apology, they have to clearly spell out mechanisms they are going to put in place to make sure that one, all the looted artifacts are returned to the motherland. Two, the institutions that continue to perpetuate this, the structural racism that continues, are addressed. Three, the compensation, which has never been paid.
The numbers of the trade are staggering. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, over 12 million Africans were forcibly taken across the Atlantic. For Ghana, this is not abstract history. Places like Cape Coast Castle and Elmina Castle still stand as evidence. These are the sites where enslaved Africans were held before being forced onto ships across the Atlantic. Ghana says the impact of that system still shapes global inequality today. Its representative to the UN described the slave trade as an event that reshaped modern history.
This resolution advances a simple but profound proposition. The trafficking and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans was a world-breaking event. Supporting this resolution is not an act of accusation, it is an act of recognition. It is an affirmation that the international community possesses the moral confidence to name historical realities and learn from them.
But there is resistance. Ghana's foreign minister confirmed that the United States and European countries are not on board. Their position is simple. Today's states should not pay for centuries-old crimes.
But when you hear some Western leaders say that this is a matter in the past, let's leave it in the past, we are only looking forward. That, with all due respect, is a very insensitive thing to say. It means that you still do not value our dignity. You do not value our self-worth. How can you just look at us in the face and say, leave these matters in the past? Why have you not left other matters in the past? Why has the Holocaust not been left in the past?
What this really comes down to is control over history. Ghana is making its move now as the global push for reparations gains momentum. And this is bigger than one vote. The African Union has already declared 2026 to 2036 as the decade of reparations. Across Africa, the language is shifting. Countries like Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Ghana are increasingly rejecting Western aid if it comes with strings that undermine sovereignty. The push for reparations is now being framed as the correction of a power imbalance that has lasted for 400 years. Analysts say if the US and Europe continue to resist, they face a unified African front that is no longer content with silence. As the UN moves on with the voting on this resolution, the question is no longer if slavery was a crime, but whether the world has the moral courage to pay the debt. What happens next won't just define history, it will shape who gets to write it.
The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news?
Is that the end of the video there?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
I find that interesting. I wanted to show some of the comments at the bottom. Let's see.
No, Rondo's comment was good. I don't like how she just framed the slave trade as an unevent. The MAFA, I've never heard that term, was many events, plans, and coordinations. Yep.
I still say that they did not bring 12 million Africans. Like they would have had to like bring a ship every and there's no record of it.
You gotta recognize
the
the scale of they applied the new cap. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
The Akanajis were very instrumental in the slave trade. You think they wouldn't have kept a record of that stuff? There is no record of 12 million people. There were people already here. Sure, they brought some, but at some point, all they needed to do was ramp up the breeding plantations. Is what they did. They weren't just continuously going to pick up slaves. They breeded people.
I think you probably have a fair point there as far as 12 million people carried across with the types of ships that they had is a bit far-fetched, but
with the seasons and the economic strain, that doesn't even make any sense.
But these kinds of numbers in history, like are like quantifying genocides and slave trades and these kinds of things, was notoriously difficult, especially with people trying to still to this day, as we can see, escape fucking accountability. So it's in their best interest to distort or destroy evidence. And
blame it on other Africans. It wasn't. You're the ones who did. You sold them to us. So why are we to blame? Like, yeah, fucker. I don't believe that either.
This is something we're gonna get into, I think. So these are some of the sources I was looking at today, where it's like a third rail conversation. You can't really talk about it about the African involvement in the slave trade, but there is documented. Whether you want to believe the documents or not,
how can't you talk about it? That's all they talk about.
But this is the problem: is that there's the white supremacist framing of, well, they did it first or they did it too, so the way we did it, there was nothing wrong with it, whatever. They're trying to distort like what actually happened historically with everybody did slavery, so it's not a white supremacist thing. The way that they specifically applied their racism to how to build like a new capitalist society was there had everything to do with the way that they evolved the system of slavery. You know, it did go through a definite phase transition of the way that, like, maybe I should get into some of the sources and kind of let them speak for themselves a bit more. But there was a definite shift from, like, there was even like slaves had a little bit more of an ability to earn their freedom, like after 4 generations or certain kinds of like ancient customary traditions. But then the way that they started doing things with the Atlantic slave trade, they're like, no, fuck that. We're going to treat you completely inhuman, whatever, and deny any small bit of whatever humanity that we had recognized in you before. You know, that's they they made the slave trade exponentially worse, you might say. And by exponential, where they tried to enslave people a lot in much greater numbers, wherever much faster, as far as the Arab slave trade to the east, like, was same kind of 12 million, whatever, took thousands of years. I've kind of made this point on the show before, but they like put slavery on steroids with fucking capitalism. Is what is my long story short. So let me share something here. You got something to comment on, or?
I'll wait my turn.
So I guess I gotta kind of make a little bit of a nuanced case here. So because when Ghana does this soft power diplomacy at the UN and whatnot, they are coming across as, you know, what we would assume to be the typical African mindset these days, which would be to be the anti-colonial, anti-imperial, looking to assert their sovereignty. But Ghana is, well, first, actually, let me share this one, because this is sort of what the post on Twitter that sent me on a journey that made this topic the topic of the day here. So so Hell Revolutionary Soldier says, warning to the AES leaders, President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, President Assimi Goïta of Mali, and President Abdourahmane Chiani of Niger. This is a warning. Ghana's John Mahama just signed a security deal with the EU, the same EU that bombs Libya, arms Israel, and polices the Mediterranean to keep Africans out. This is not partnership, this is a trap. Any African leader who accommodates imperialists is a danger to the continent. Imperialism is our common enemy, not each other. The AES is showing the way. Ghana is going backward. Africa must choose sovereignty or servitude, no middle ground.
And when was that?
This was March 25th, when this post was.
So I'm assuming that you're saying this gesture that he's proposing to the UN, he knows it's not going to go anywhere. That's just his way of trying to say, hey, I'm with you. No, you can trust me.
Placating the populace domestically at home to say, look, I'm not one of these, you know, I'm not a cuck to the Europeans or the Americans.
I'm not Nigeria.
Yeah, no, but they are, right? It's sad to say, like, I'm not trying to attack African nations, but this isn't acting like a nation. This is acting like a vassal, you know, trying to, you know, look which way the winds are blowing and side with power, you know? So
See, this is making more sense to me, because that lie about 12 million, yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah, let me, I think I could maybe make a good case here as far as like a string of hypocrisy that's like centuries long. And yeah, let me just see, let me cook here. Ghana EU sign landmark security defense pact, March 25th, 2026. So Ghana and the European Union have signed a historic security and defense partnership agreement aimed at strengthening cooperation to address evolving security threats in West Africa. The agreement, the first of its kind in Africa, will focus on counterterrorism, conflict prevention, extremism, border management, and maritime security. This after AES made a huge show of, for the last few years, of kicking out the French for failing their commitments in their counterterrorism and conflict prevention and actually being the source of it. Ghana thinks they can show you how it's done. Okay. The Vice President of Ghana, Professor Nana Jane or Opoku Agyemang, signed on behalf of Ghana, while the High Representative and Vice President of the European Commission, Ms. Kaya Kallas, for those of you who know who she is, awful person, moronic puppet representative of the EU. As part of the partnership, the EU also donated a range of security equipment to Ghana. Speaking at the ceremony, Professor Opoku Agyemang highlighted that the agreement reflects the long-standing relationship between Ghana and the EU and their shared commitment to peace, stability, and sustainable development. She noted that Ghana is the first African country to enter such a partnership with the EU, joining nations like the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, and Norway in enhancing security cooperation. That sounds like supporting white supremacy while asking very politely at the United Nations non-binding General Assembly for them to give you your stuff back that they stole from you. So the vice president stressed that the agreement comes at a critical time as the West African sub-region continues to face complex emerging threats, particularly in the Sahel. She cited recent attacks on Ghanaian traders in Burkina Faso as a reminder of the growing insecurity in the region and the need for coordinated action. Ms. Callas emphasized that the agreement allows closer collaboration on key areas. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. National Security Coordinator COP Osman Abdul Razak stated that the partnership reflects a shared resolve to enhance coordination and build resilience against evolving security challenges, particularly in West Africa and the Sahel. He noted that this collaboration is part of President Dramani Mahama's broader efforts to review strategic alliances and strengthen the capacity of Ghana's security and intelligence agencies. This agreement positions Ghana as a regional leader in security cooperation with international partners and underscores the importance of multilateral approaches in addressing cross-border threats. This is why we don't even really feel the need to read the entire article, because like the last half of that was basically a waste of time to finish reading. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but so when you combine that with, we'll stay on the foreign policy for a minute. Ghana's turn away from the Sahrawi people undermines continental solidarity. So if you recall our episode on the Western Sahara with the Polisario Front, considered the last remaining colony in Africa, it had looked there for a while like they were going to gain their independence, and this is one of those struggles for determinism that I support. Unlike Taiwan, I support Western Sahara's independence, except that the UN has decided to cave to American and probably European pressure and Morocco pressure to try and take away these people's rights. Even though for the decades, public opinion was able to state clearly that that their struggle was legitimate, right? That they have every right for their own independence. So Ghana's suspension of diplomatic ties with the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic has sparked widespread criticism. This is from January 16th, a whole year ago. But these things are slow moving, but it's like you can't be neutral on a moving train or whatever. This is or like a glacier or whatever. It's slow moving, but it goes in one direction, right? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So just before John Dramani Mahama took the oath of office on January 7th, 2025, marking the start of his presidency, a diplomatic decision from the outgoing Nana Akufo-Addo administration surprised many across Ghana and beyond. A statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the eve of the inauguration announced the suspension of Ghana's diplomatic relations with the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. The statement reads, "The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration of the Republic of Ghana presents its compliments to the Embassy of Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic with reference to efforts to find an acceptable solution to the Western Sahara dispute under the auspices of the United Nations, including removing any impediment that can prejudice the final resolution of the dispute, wishes to inform that the Republic of Ghana has decided to suspend diplomatic relations with SADR." The move, framed as a step to remove any impediment to resolving the Western Sahara dispute under United Nations auspices, has drawn parallels to a similar controversy in Kenya 2 years ago, following President William Ruto's inauguration. On the day after Ruto assumed office, Kenya announced it was severing ties with SADR, a decision quickly met with public outcry and later rescinded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Kenyan government clarified that its stance remained aligned with the African Union Charter, which recognizes the right to self-determination for all peoples. Nevertheless, Kenya's eventual move to open an embassy in Morocco in 2024 signals a warming of relations with Rabat, who is cozied up with the Trump administration, who's very cozy with Israel. So you see, once you see these connections, you cannot unsee them, or else you are not really like a real decent person, in my opinion. So the uncanny coincidence in timing and actions between the two countries raises questions about Morocco's diplomatic strategy. Morocco's claim over Western Sahara has long been challenged, with the territory recognized by the United Nations as a non-self-governing territory awaiting decolonization. The SADR, proclaimed in 1976 by the Polisario Front, asserts its sovereignty over Western Sahara and is recognized by the African Union and numerous countries globally. Yet Morocco has systematically sought to undermine SADR's legitimacy, leveraging economic partnerships and bilateral agreements to sway nations to its side. For Ghana, the decision is particularly jarring, given its historical legacy of Pan-Africanism and solidarity with African countries in their fight for independence. Under Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana championed the causes of anti-colonialism and self-determination, extending support to movements in Africa and beyond. The recognition of Sadr in 1979 was a continuation of this legacy, reaffirming Ghana's commitment to justice and decolonization. Remembering this is all during the Cold War, with the Soviet Union still having a balance of power with the Americans, and then I guess as a consequence of the unipolar moment with the Americans, Ghana's had a bit of an identity change here. So the socialist movement of Ghana denounced the decision as a betrayal of the people of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Africa, accusing the Akufo-Addo administration of advancing the interests of Western imperialist powers over the aspirations of the Sahrawi people. This is also straight out of the playbook from, by the way, of the Western democratic, whatever, dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. You know how they love to do that, right, Abby? With the, they'll get the outgoing administration to make a controversial decision so that the incoming administration can say, oh, that's not really our fault because what do you want us to do? That was the opposition. That was the conservatives. That was the Republicans, whatever. And it's going to be a lot harder to undo now that they got it baked into law, whatever. But you'll have to vote us in for a second term, whatever, and a majority so we can get right. That's how they play it, right?
Yeah, they make sure it expires when the next administration comes, like towards the end or something. So they could say, oh, well, you're not under my tax code, you're under Trump's tax code. Okay.
So do something about it, Democrats. I thought that's what you're supposed to be fighters, right? Yeah, right. Sorry.
I wonder if it's baked in our Constitution. You know how in Russia's Constitution you could only do 2 terms, and the loophole that Putin got around was he made his prime. No, he had someone. He was in cahoots with the president after him for the 2 terms, and he became prime minister. And then he ran again and made the president prime minister underneath him. So that's how he got his other 2 terms. And then he started changing the laws. I wonder if Trump is looking into that.
They all talk to each other behind the scenes. Don't act like, or don't get confused, right? So let me see.
I gotta Google that and see if we have a loophole in our Constitution.
Oh, sounds like a good line of research. Shall I continue reading?
Sure. Which I don't have a problem with a president serving more than 2 terms if the people like it.
I have a problem with serving for life, like serving for more than 20 years. There should be a limit that.
There should be a limit, but 2 terms isn't that much.
Yeah. Like Putin's been in power for too long. There's a lot of people in Africa have been in power way too long. We got like lifelong installments. That's called monarchism, not democracy. That's what the new thing about the new monarchist kind of method is, to do monarchy in practice, not in actual name.
There also is such a thing as like in America, people don't want to do certain business with us because they know all it's going to take is an election, and everything the previous person did, they can undo.
Yeah, I often have not too much sympathy for that kind of person, maybe, because that's more the right. That's more the right wing. This country's not authoritarian enough for me. This democracy is going to affect my bottom line. Boo-hoo, bourgeois. Oh, I mean, sorry.
I mean, they know exactly what they're putting time limits on and what they're not. You know what I mean? Like, they know exactly what they're doing.
Well, I guess I should. When you look into the history of, like, the bourgeois is only one class of the wealthy elite. It's not necessarily like they have competing interests. So, like the landlord class and the wealthy industrialists, like they're not all actually technically bourgeoisie. It gets pretty complicated when you want to be the orthodox kind of Marxist about it. But to me, that's why I just lumped them all in. Like, you guys are all fucking capitalists, right? But there's, to be more academic and specific and accurate, there are varying degrees. There are different categories of capitalists and all that. So that's kind of getting on a tangent. So let me get back to the article here.
They're okay. They're discussing it in the chat about the time limits.
Feel free, but I don't think you want to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater as far as democracy is concerned. What we want to do is get past bourgeois democracy to actually achieve true democracy, which would be of the people, by the people, for the people, which is a nice slogan. But if you actually manage to put that into practice, then I think we would be able to achieve things. If not an outright revolution, we can achieve greater social reform through a more effective functioning democracy than if we decide what seems to be the more popular thing nowadays, which is to say democracy just does not work, and let's need the right thing to do is to abandon it to find a better, superior system. But what they're doing is going backwards, back to a more fascistic kind of system building. It's not an improvement over this flawed democracy, but that's another conversation anyway, right?
Yeah. You know, a generation is enough time for somebody to be in office. So the next generation can decide, is the country headed in the direction I want it to go? And if not, you have no ability to allow the boomers to keep the country going in the direction that they see fit. We can change it if we want. But that's speaking under a capitalist system, which neither of us want anyway. So that's neither here nor there, is it?
Yeah, we can kind of go back and forth about that all day. I think at the end of the day, if you really want to be truly democratic, we just have to say that those things are subject to changes if the people vote in such a way as to change that system. But the problem is it's rigged so that we can't actually change it. So, but let's get back to this article here, because this is getting off farther and farther away from the topic of the day. So the socialist movement of Ghana denounced the decision as a betrayal of the Sahrawi people in Africa. I already read that. Advances the interests of Western imperialist powers over the aspirations of the Sahrawi people. It also notes that the move disrupts long-standing national, regional, and continental solidarity with SADR in its anti-colonial struggles, describing it as a dastardly parting shot aimed at aiding Morocco in its colonial hold over Western Sahara. The statement released by SMG also contextualized how Morocco's colonial occupation began in 1976 after the Spanish withdrawal from Western Sahara. Its occupation has been marked by repression, displacement of Sahrawi people into desert concentration camps, a refusal to hold a long-promised referendum on the territory's status, as mandated by numerous UN resolutions. So they just ignore what the UN says until they cherry pick when the UN says something that they like or whatever, as far as like this statement here about removing any impediment that can prejudice the final resolution of what the UN is trying to do, or whatever. So I lost my spot here.
I mean, the UN has been rendered useless for a while now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
No, but it's what it matters in that it's what people are using as their like
Crutch.
their only hope, their crutch. Yeah, like the when the Americans do this oppressive stuff, we have to run to the UN to ask for them to do something. But that's like going to the person, whether you know it or not, the person who is in cahoots with the person oppressing you. So maybe I should move on for the sake of time, because this is getting to be more about the Western Sahara than Ghana. But this is basically, it's about Ghana's decision. Kamal
To placate us is how it feels to me. I want to give a shout out to Canada Dry, by the way. They're hitting me up in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Glad to have new viewers. Like, share, and subscribe if you like. So I'm just going to read this one more.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, I'll just read like this last paragraph here and then move on. Kamal Fadel, SADR's representative to Australia and the Pacific, expressed deep disappointment over Ghana's decision, telling People's Dispatch, "I am deeply surprised by the decision, which is not consistent with Ghana's long-standing and principled foreign policy. Since 1979, Ghana has formally recognized the SADR, and this recognition has been grounded in the Republic of Ghana's commitment to decolonization, self-determination, and respect for international law. No significant developments have occurred in the Western Sahara conflict to warrant such an unexpected change in Ghana's position." So, and then interestingly enough, as far as what we were talking about on Tuesday, as far as the critique of Richard Medhurst's thing about America's actually cornering the oil and gas market with this war with Iran or whatever. And we have to maybe struggle to correctly identify this historical moment that we're in. Because if America is actually weak, on the verge of true collapse for good finally, this move makes no sense for Ghana to be trying to throw away their sovereignty and solidarity with anti-colonial and anti-imperial struggles, whatever, for decades. You know, they're giving up on that because they believe, I guess, that the winners are going to be the white supremacists.
Seems like it.
Yeah. And so I'll get back to, I've had sidetracked. I was going to talk about Ghana helped U.S. deport the migrants, and now its own citizens are shut out. So we did a little bit of a historical thing. Let's see what you got here for a video, and then we can talk about how they're complicit in helping fucking Trump with their ICE shit.
You can stay with Ghana because this is about Black Indians being reclassified. So it's a totally different subject. Yeah.
Right. You
so let's finish yours.
Telling me you might have researched things that were a little bit.
I didn't really get a chance to do as much research as I want to do because, like, going into the censuses and stuff.
Well, I
usually watch people doing that on other channels. That's why I go to other channels for that, because they've done all the research and show the stuff, and instead of me reinventing the wheel, I need to just invite one of them on.
Yeah, well, I've been wanting to have that episode too about that, because we've touched on that conversation a few times, and we've had a bit of disagreements or.
No, you had a disagreement, but you hadn't done any research about it.
Well, it takes two to tango, I guess. Agree to disagree, but that's what I'm saying. We had some point of contentions there, so we need to maybe carry through with that conversation to iron out some confusion. But we can get to that in some weeks to come. If you want me to stick with Ghana, then maybe we can go follow up with that video more towards the end. But
well, I have a few things. You just brought my video up.
Oh, sorry.
You wanted to do that?
No, that's where did I bring yours up on accident? Because I was just calling back up my source, and then
there you go.
All right, cool. Because you got to kind of set the narrative straight with this. It's kind of this liberal propaganda, I guess you might call it, about reparations at the United Nations that the Ghana president is doing. For a white person like me to come out strongly against someone like that, I better fucking do my homework. You know what I mean? But I think really that their hypocrisy is on full display enough that, and as long as I attack,
I caught it as soon as you
then I'm making critical arguments. You know what I mean? Sorry.
I caught it right away.
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
I mean, not right away, but after Traore, I said, "Oh, they doing that too? Okay, I see what's happening here." It's very obvious.
Because with the AES doing what they're doing, they have all these countries. These are their neighbors. They have basically given them an opportunity / ultimatum. You know, you can, like, now's the time. You can stand up with us and assert your independence, and we can have respect for each other as brothers. Or you can, because you've been cucked by whatever the white supremacists for decades, if you can't overcome your Stockholm syndrome, then it's not friendly fire if you decided to be too loyal to the enemy. You know what I mean? There's also other things I wanted to talk about, but we just didn't have time, as far as like things happening in neighboring countries that are maybe relevant to understanding how this relates to the whole regional geopolitics playing out. As far as there was like a coup in Benin that I think the Niger was trying to sort of support and propagate, which is, of course, they would deny, right? But their coup that they were trying to get, because they need access to the sea, the French and the Nigerians thwarted that coup attempt in Benin, so they fucked over the Nigerians, not the Nigerians. The Nigerians then had this plutonium or uranium that they confiscated from the French that they really needed to get to market somehow, but they could not, and it was becoming like something that the resource that people kept trying to attack and stuff, and they eventually decided it was more worth it to them to give some of it back to the French, embarrassingly enough, than to try and hold on to this radioactive hot potato that's being like raided by terrorists or whatever, supported by the CIA probably, right? So it's a very complex situation going on with West Africa right now. And the problem is, like, the propaganda makes it hard to pay attention to what's going on. But like I was saying about the other episode a while ago about the pipelines that they're trying to get happening, like, pay attention to Algeria and Morocco right now, because everything that's been like a frozen conflict for the last little while is sort of heating back up again. And that's why I was talking about what Ghana's shift against the Sahrawi people is an example of that. Whatever, everything is boiling back up to the surface right now. So let me get to this article here. Ghana helped.
So just real quick before you do. So it just makes me think we have to go back and revisit the whole Nicki Minaj debacle about, the Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. And remember, we discussed this. We were like, no, what's happening is Trump wants to get closer to Niger. Trump and France want to get closer to Niger, so they need to go through Nigeria to do that. So they're saying that they care, like, you give a goddamn about African Christians. You don't care about white Christians.
And glad you say that. You reminded me, actually, another thing as far as the broader regional geopolitics. France and the EU, they passed a recent, like, unanimous resolution that the rightful leader that should be in charge of Niger is the person that's been under house arrest or whatever since the coup for like 3 years. So the Europeans have the fucking arrogance to sit there and say who should be in charge of Africa's of African countries, right? While the U.S. installs 200 troops in Nigeria on the fucking border with Niger, right? Sounds like they're, once this Iran shit, however it plays out, West Africa's on the fucking menu.
Chopping block. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's good. Yeah, thank you. So Ghana helped U.S. deport migrants, and now its own citizens are shut out. 27 African nations Sorry, I'm just going to mute you there for a second. So 27 African nations are included in a U.S. visa freeze, even as many have helped enforce Washington's deportation agenda. This is by Adam Mahoney from January 17, 2026 at capitalbnews.org. America is a bully that is never satisfied, Oliver Barker Vormawar said from Ghana. This guy, I guess. The Trump administration's new freeze on immigrant visas from 75 nations is the latest example, he added. African nations make up a striking share of the 75 countries swept into the Trump administration's new freeze on immigrant visas, a move officials say targets people whose migrants take welfare from the African people at unacceptable rates. There are 26 African, or from the American, did I say African? Take welfare from the American people at unacceptable rates. There are 26 African countries on the 75-country visa suspension list. The list includes Somalia, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. The federal government did not specify the percentage of immigrants from the affected countries who use public assistance, of course. Probably because that would be an embarrassing thing to reveal.
Exactly. And by the way, the South African refugees who were running from South Africa because they were scared for their lives, do you know they all went back?
Did they already?
They all went back already. Well, except for one, because he's in jail because he killed his wife on American soil. But the rest of them went back.
That's ridiculous.
And that story was like quietly told.
Well, thank you for telling the ending of the story, because that's the cherry on top, the whatever.
Yeah. So you're running back to get killed by South Africans. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's worse here than it is there. What's going on?
Yeah. That's the $64 million question. What's going on? This is a little bit bigger. So African governments and advocates say the visa freeze is landing on a continent already bearing the brunt of Washington's harder line on migration and security. Across West, East, and North Africa, the U.S. government has invested in counterterrorism partnerships and struck recent deportation agreements that have helped turn cities like Accra, the capital of Ghana, Addis Ababa, and Mogadishu into waypoints in a global removal system, even as ordinary Africans face some of the strictest visa regimes in the world. Barker Vormawar, a civil rights activist and lawyer, argued that the U.S. used us and dumped us in that bogus deportees deal before turning around to hit Ghana with an even harsher visa ban. And they also used the Kurds, and they also used India, and they also used, the list goes on and on, right? Now that they got what they wanted, they have reimposed an even more aggressive visa ban on Ghana. The rebuke lands in a country that, in recent months, quietly agreed to help Washington solve its deportation headaches. Ghana has taken in plane loads of people expelled from the U.S., including some non-Ghanaians, under a deal lawyers and rights groups say stretched the limits of Ghana's own laws.
Did you know that Ghanaians, the Ghanaian government offers dual citizenship to any black person in America? Now, you just can't get the dual. You got to come with some cash now. So but you're automatically right.
That's just like Canada's immigration policy of we'll take any of the wealthy, skilled immigrants, but we don't really want any of the poor. So what they want is wealthy people who will bring American dollars for their economy to keep it Americanized and dollarized, but they don't really care to notice how the U.S. is not reciprocating that. Like they're like, well, thanks or whatever, but if any of you, even your wealthy people, want to come here, we still don't really fuck with them. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't understand how these people, they'll like take like that direct, like white supremacism, like blatant, open in their face or whatever, and I don't know how they'll justify, like, whatever. If I just bow and kiss the ring in their toes and everything or whatever in between, and then
if you have a colonized mind, then that's you're easily manipulated to do that. So
Yeah.
that's why you got to keep your mind pure and logical with reason and humanity.
Yep. So what is your life worth at the end of the day? It's like, what are you willing to stand up against? Because if you're not, you end up being like a stepping stool for someone who's, deserves to be in the dirt. So Yeah.
I like that.
And I want to get to, I put in the title, The Golden Stool of the Emperor Without Clothes. There's a historical story about how the British turned on the people that were selling them slaves after all this time or whatever. And they had the War of the Golden Stool. And it's a little bit fascinating to read.
I also think it's quite interesting how the president of Ghana never mentioned the UK or Belgium or France and the reparations they owe to the Caribbean people, the people of Congo, the 14 countries that were. I'd say Mali and the Congos owe the most reparations because they took the most of the physical brunt, but they're still owed money from France for that colonial tax bullshit. So I just found it interesting that he didn't mention any of those countries. He was focusing mainly on America. So why? Like if you're gonna stand on business, stand on it.
Yeah, I think he said that all those things that were stolen in the museums and stuff, we demand that they're given back. But that's like a blanket thing, without getting into the specifics of demanding. But that's in this kind of context. Getting into the specifics is perfectly the right thing to do. As far as we're asking that you give this back and this back, and by going into detail, you expose the historical record of all the crimes right in front of everybody, right? But I don't know. That would be, I guess, being too long-winded or something. Barker Vormawar, a civil rights activist and lawyer, argued that the U.S. Used us and dumped us in that bogus deportees deal before turning around to hit Ghana with an even harsher visa ban. Now that they got what they wanted, they have reimposed an even more aggressive visa ban on Ghana. The rebuke lands in a country that in recent months quietly agreed to help Washington solve its deportation headaches. I think I already read that part. The correct response now for us is to impose reciprocal bans, said Barker Vormawar about the next steps for African nations. The Trump administration has also taken measures that could make it more difficult for immigrants from these countries already living in the U.S. to remain in the country. Last year, deportations of people from African countries roughly tripled compared with the annual average during the Biden administration, according to a capital B analysis of government data provided by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Likewise, the immigration-related arrests of African-born migrants have more than doubled, despite less than 40% of those arrested having a criminal record. Excuse me. So that little detail, to me, is relevant for our conversation. Not to bring him up, unfortunately, pan-mulattoism. As far as his defense about working with ICE is a good idea because they're going after the South American, the Mexican, the Central American immigrants. They're not deporting. They're not trying to diminish the Black communities in America. Because his defense was by helping them, he would be increasing the size of the Black communities in the U.S. But it seems to me, look at the data, that they've increased their targeting of the Black communities in America. As much as the rhetoric is about targeting the Hispanic community, it's not really discriminating. Like, they're not quite exactly discriminating against one or the other. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't quite catch it.
Okay, that's all good. I'm just saying, doesn't look like they're deporting black people any less than they are
Oh, I see.
Hispanic people, right?
Oh,
As far as
okay.
Pam Milato's idiotic idea of helping ICE, he's not helping the black community in the U.S. That's what this is. This is what this is saying here, right? Many African countries, and this is from Capital B News, right? That's not a fucking leftist thing. So many African countries included in the visa ban are already destabilized by conflict, debt, or climate shocks. This is now a new barrier for residents hoping to join family or pursue work and education in the U.S. The pause covers immigrant visas, choking off long-term pathways while leaving short-term tourist and business travel intact. A distinction critics say prioritizes people who are able to spend money in the country over resettlement, human rights, family unity, and fucking dignity. For William Urenki, a Ghanaian man with dreams of migrating to the U.S. because of police abuse in Ghana, the ban is scary and confusing, he wrote through WhatsApp. I'm sorry, William, if you haven't heard it and you need to hear it. A Ghanaian man with dreams of migrating to the U.S. to avoid police abuse is not going in the right direction. You're going from the frying pan into the fire, in case you need to hear, right? What makes it worse is how unclear it is, he wrote. For many intended immigrants from developing countries, this still has real-life implications. Families are separated, livelihoods are disrupted, and all of this is happening through administrative decisions with little public debate. Ghana's inclusion is especially jarring given its deepening cooperation with Washington on deportations and border enforcement. Those deals effectively turned Ghana into a conveyor belt for U.S. removals as deportees arrived in shackles, disappeared into unsafe facilities, and in some cases were pushed onward to countries they once fled. At the same time, its leaders invited diaspora tourists and investors through campaigns like the Year of Return. So if you're stupid enough to think that because you are pro-capitalist that the U.S. likes you, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn.
Do you know what the year of return is?
No, is that that they're doing some kind of return? They're encouraging Americans to return to Ghana or something?
Black Americans, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
Right. So, but that's another thing about, is that really, what is that really about at the end of the day? Like the cynical kind of capitalist motivation is we're trying to bring the American dollars, whatever. We want comprador bourgeoisie, right?
Philip Scott lives in Ghana now.
Right. That's where I'm noticing something as far as something to study here, right? Because I don't really, I'm hearing a little bit about
trying
it.
To tell us what we need to do.
But I don't know. I don't know enough about that stuff, so I need to learn, I guess, a little bit more. So as far as who we're listening to, I watch that African Diaspora News channel sometimes. I just don't really see Philip Scott as much as the other co-hosts and stuff. So this thing about so they're being deported to Ghana and then they're being pushed onward to other countries. I had another article. I think it's this one over here.
Okay, it's 1:15 now.
What are you saying? 1:15?
I mean, an hour and 15 in.
Oh yeah. So what are you saying? As far as for the sake of time, moving on, is that?
No, if it feels like it's really important, I'm just saying. I'm just giving you a time check.
Okay, thanks. No, yeah, just briefly, just to go a little bit more deeper into that. Well, there's a video we can maybe play if you want. But Ghana took in Trump's deported West Africans, then it forced them home. And this is saying, after U.S. immigration agents detained Rabiatu Kouyaté in July, she applied for protection from being deported to her native Sierra Leone, saying she feared being tortured because of her father's ties to the political opposition. An immigration judge granted her request, but on November 5th, she was deported to Ghana, another West African country. There, she said she was detained at a hotel for 6 days before being forcibly returned to her home country. So as far as putting an end to human trafficking and modern slavery, you will make a statement at the UN. We deserve reparations because of slavery, whatever, and then do this kind of stuff to...
I guess she didn't have enough money.
like they're perpetuating that. That's another thing as far as thank you for reminding me for sake of time or whatever, but let me get into this modern slavery bit, because it's still going on today. There's probably more slaves now than ever, right? So urgent action needed as tens of thousands in Ghana experience modern slavery. And that's probably a lowball estimate. An estimated 91,000 people in Ghana are living in modern slavery, according to the Global Slavery Index, highlighting the urgent need for action against exploitation. What I don't like about this definition of modern slavery is they make a conscious effort to not allow wage slavery to be a viable definition, because if wage slavery is true, then we're all in modern slavery. It's called wage slavery, but this is modern chattel slavery that still exists alongside modern wage slavery. So they're highlighting the urgent need for action against exploitation. So 50 million people are living in modern slavery globally, which includes people subjected to forced labor, human trafficking, and forced and child marriage. In response to this global crisis, more than 300 faith leaders, survivors, civil society groups, and government representatives are gathering in Accra, Ghana, on the 8th of October. This was in 2025. 8th of October, right? Just the day after the 7th of October. Nothing to see there. The Faith in Action Against Modern Slavery Conference marks 10 years of the Global Freedom Network. This is interesting. I did a little deep dive or a little rabbit hole on this, and renews the global commitment to ending modern slavery. So they're going to act like, because they're faith leaders, religious community is who you need to go to put an end to slavery. But if you look at history, you recognize, I've made this point before, and if you go into the fucking documents or the historical materialism, you see that religion played a massive role in the establishment of the slavery system, the justification for it, right? And so they are completely culpable then and now. They're just, nowadays, they do the PR thing about they need to pretend to be woke or whatever, as if they actually want to end slavery. But by acting like the corporations and whatnot are going to do their due diligence at some point and actually cleanse their supply lines of the fucking slavery, whatever, that's how you're going to do it, whatever, by putting your faith in faith leaders and corporations that have both proven to be like serial child rapists and murderers and slavers. So don't be fucking fooled by the opium of the masses, okay? So this faith communities representing nearly half of the world's population have long been at the forefront of humanitarian action. Their moral authority and networks position them as powerful change makers in shifting harmful norms, influencing policy, and supporting survivors. Faith leaders are uniquely positioned to change hearts, minds, and norms. They often serve as the moral compass of their communities. Head of the Global Freedom Network said. So what is this Global Freedom Network? Here it is. Mining magnate Andrew Forrest launches Global Freedom Network in bid to end slavery. Do these people look like the people who want to end slavery? I don't know. Not just me. Okay.
I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but hell no.
Catholic Bishop Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo, front left, Professor Mahmoud Azab, front right, signed the agreement with Anglican Bishop Sir David John Moxon and Andrew Forrest, fucking billionaire capitalist. Mining magnate Andrew Forrest has launched an organization to end modern slavery with the support of the Pope and the senior Islamic authority. The Global Freedom Network has been inaugurated at the Vatican and brings together the Catholic, Anglican, and Sunni Muslim faiths in a combined effort to stop modern slavery. Pope Francis, the Archbishop of Canterbury, this was from fucking 2014, right? Justin Welby and the senior Sunni authority, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar. It's interesting talking about the senior Sunni authority as far as I'm not sure which imam this is. I didn't take the time to do that research, but they seem to have certain Islamic communities, like the Saudi Arabian, whatever imams they got there. They're not really on the side of Islam, is the argument that Iran has been making for quite some time, right? And interestingly enough, the Russian Church Orthodox have been very vocal about the problems with the Catholic Pope for a very long time. It's the thing called the Great Schism, in case you never heard of it. The leaders of other faiths have been invited to join the network. Speaking at the event, Mr. Forrest said the campaign would spread to churches and mosques around the world. I ask, ladies and gentlemen, for your prayers now as the work of the Global Freedom Network, its unprecedented historical nature, goes forward and does reach out successfully to the 162 countries which are measured in the Global Slavery Index. The Global Slavery Index, compiled by Mr. Forrest's Walk Free Foundation, estimates about 60 million people are enslaved in Pakistan and India alone. So I'm kind of done with that. I'm not listening to this. I don't trust any data that comes from the Slavery Index compiled by the fucking philanthropist, billionaire, with his, what do you call
His
it?
think tank. His think
NGO.
tank.
His
NGO.
Yeah. So this is where it's interesting that this is even on a Reuters, whatever, opinion piece, but it's time to stop believing corporate fairy tales about modern slavery. Corporate social responsibility is badly failing to detect, address, and prevent forced labor in the global economy. So this is like an article we all know intrinsically the truth. We don't necessarily even need to hear it. So I don't know if you want me to go through it, but we all know that corporations love to tell the fairy tales about their efforts to eradicate their bad practices.
Yeah, we kind of went through that last week too, with the whole American trying, like their whole trafficking wing or what have you. All bullshit.
Yep. But I did find, as far as we always point the finger at the West and the white supremacists, and that is completely the right thing to do. Unfortunately, in the case of Ghana, you come across a repeating narrative about Chinese citizens.
Look,
So first of all,
ECOWAS has its own problems, its own colonized governmental problems. And we all know that. That's why I focus on the Sahel region, because we already know ECOWAS is gone.
ECOWAS is
captured.
Like it's the puppet alliance that's directed by NATO, basically. So
basically,
so this is a tricky to try and get the angle of the Chinese exploitation of Africa. It's hard because that's like the Western propaganda will tell you that the Chinese companies accused of being involved in illegal exploitative mining practices doing the exact same thing as like fucking as the West is doing, right? So they're obviously no better whether they're communist or not. But then look is a registered charity. Business and Human Rights Center is a registered charity in England and Wales, a nonprofit organization in the USA, and registered charitable association in Germany. So I'm not really looking to be taking what they're saying too seriously. But then there's also like then we can get to the thing about this. We'll go to the authoritative sources of science articles, right? And we've gone through how they're compromised too, where the scientists act in defense of the white supremacists. They defend imperialism quite regularly, the academics, right? So it's not necessarily just because you find an article like this doesn't really mean, like, there might be a little bit more factual, evidence-based, but they often still are racist and biased with the conclusions they're drawing. So, but there is a definite, like the one fact that can be said is that there is an increasing scale of Chinese participation in Ghana's illegal small-scale gold mining. So they got like the artisanal mining where the child labor is happening, and then there's like the mining companies that are like official registered stock whatever traded companies, right? But this is something to not just be because I want to be communist or whatever. I want to just cheerlead China because they're communists, so they can do no wrong, right? Well, I think that would maybe not be understanding accurately the true historical materialism, or not being properly dialectical, right? It wouldn't be actually recognizing the objective facts on the ground. Maybe it's hard to tell when you can't even get on the ground, right? So growing attention paid to the environmental impacts associated with informal, artisanal, and small-scale mining in Ghana has sparked debate about the recent proliferation of Chinese migrants in the sector. This paper contributes to this discussion by focusing on local pull factors, particularly those that relate to distributional inequity in Ghanaian mining policy and how they serve as catalyst for illegal mining. Findings from qualitative exploratory case studies reveal that illegal Chinese artisanal mining, whatever, small business mining, is caused by local grievances and resistance to systemic distributional inequities in Ghana's mineral policy on two related fronts, including inequitable mineral wealth distribution and inequitable mining land regime. These findings suggest that policy efforts to find a lasting solution to illegal foreign artisanal mining and illegal mining in the broader sense should engage and collaborate with all the relevant local stakeholders to address these distributional inequities. Basically, they're just trying to maintain like whatever monopoly over the mining trade. They won't let small businesses actually participate, and so then they go and they do illegal mining. Is kind of like the impression that I'm getting. Over the past decade, Ghana's artisanal and small-scale mining sector has attracted a wave of Chinese migrants. Between 2008 and 2016, over 50,000 Chinese gold seekers migrated to rural Ghana to engage in illegal ASM, aided at various levels by local collaborators. In Ghana, artisanal mining has traditionally been carried out mainly by locals in a rudimentary fashion using basic tools like chisels and pans for mining and ore processing. The introduction of heavy and sophisticated earth-moving machines by the Chinese into this mining sector has caused significant changes. For example, bulldozers, excavators, and sophisticated water platforms have been linked to aggravated environmental destruction in several communities countrywide. Concerns have deepened over the escalating environmental impacts in the form of land degradation, destruction of arable land, and contamination of freshwater bodies. In response, the central government has over the years implemented several stopgap measures aimed at curbing illegal Chinese artisanal mining and illegal mining in general. These actions comprise military raids, arrests, and the deportation of foreign miners engaged in artisanal mining. Furthermore, the government banned all artisanal mining activities between April 2017 and December 2018. In recent years, Chinese infiltration into the ASM sector has arguably reduced due to frequent military raids on illegal ASM sites. However, recent studies show that the phenomenon of Chinese involvement remains a significant threat to the ASM sector in Ghana. So I wanted to talk about that Chinese mining thing because I saw that on the African Diaspora News channel that I had, like, just because I felt it was worth connecting because I had seen the thing about the UN resolution put forward by the Ghanaian president, and then I see the news story about the Chinese miners in Ghana, and then I see the EU Landmark Security Defense Pact. I'm like, talking about Ghana today. So you're muted there.
I said I don't think I'm gonna get to anything today.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't know what because we had an unrelated thing, like strands of research. So if you wanted to, maybe let me see if I got any last things.
No, it's okay.
Because then we can just was. It's always fun to talk about the masonry angle, right? As far as why would Ghana do this kind of thing? So there's I was talking about maybe I'll do the golden stool thing to wrap up the War of the Golden Stool, because I put it in the title, and so that would be kind of a clickbaity thing to not really explain it. So are you maybe curious as far as what this is? The golden stool? I
am curious. I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just I can wait till next week. It's fine.
No worries. We should try and coordinate a bit better offline as far as what research you're looking into and what I'm doing and how to harmonize it. So there's a show called Gold Rush. They went to Ghana.
I mean, you told me you just went down a different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I guess I did too.
It's all good. Maybe we'll meet on the other side. Wherever we go on the rabbit hole, we'll dig our way to China.
Hence the article right here.
So this is just a Wikipedia thing. So I'm sure there's better resources, but this is just a quick summary of some colonial history here. Although maybe so I don't know how much time I want to kind of talk about this Asante Empire, because this is the story of these African slavers that people are in kind of some denial about. It's like as if they don't actually exist. Whatever history says that they exist, it's just a nuanced thing. Like racism makes it so that we can't talk about that kind of stuff because people's racism is more important than fucking historical fact. So, but this is the War of the Golden Stool, also known as the Ya Asantewa War. The Third Ashanti Expedition, the Ashanti Uprising, or variations thereof, was a campaign in 1900 during the series of conflicts between the United Kingdom and the Ashanti Empire, an autonomous state in West Africa that fractiously coexisted with the British and its vassal coastal tribes. After several prior wars with British troops, Ashanti was once again occupied by British troops in January 1896. In 1900, the Ashanti staged an uprising. The British suppressed the revolt and captured the city of Kumasi. Ashanti's traditional king, the Asantehen, and his counselors were deported. The outcome was the annexation. How do you deport fucking indigenous people? You know what I mean? The outcome was the annexation of Ashanti by the British so that it became part of His Majesty's dominions and a British crown colony with its administration undertaken by a chief commissioner under the authority of the governor of the Gold Coast. So this happened in 1900, and before that, they basically contracted with the local royalty who were selling them the slaves and whatnot. But before the British were the main buyers of the slaves, it was like the Portuguese and the Spanish and whatnot. And so then there's a whole long history to get through on this stuff. Right?
Well, you know, Portugal did not come to be a country until Spain fell. So you might as well just say the Spanish.
Well, no, they were a country before.
You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean Spain fell or whatever. They're both, Spain still exists, right? So,
as an empire.
As an
No,
empire.
I mean as an empire. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, that's and then Portugal had an empire of its own, which was very surprising to me that such a tiny country would be capable of that. But that's like neither here nor there.
Not like the other ones, but yeah, you're right. And maybe they were just like the British to America, just an arm of Spain, you know, just to throw people off.
Yeah.
When you look at what people do to us now and how they try to make us seem like, oh yeah, we don't fuck with them no more. And they're still just like this. That could have been the same thing with Portugal and Spain. They just broke off as a way to make us think a certain way. We just have to look at history way differently than what we were taught and use our own noggins because they are very deceptive.
There's that's a good point. There's like something to keep in mind. There's all these different factions and all these different nations or whatnot. And so, and these massive animosities, like the British and the French have this historic hatred of each other for good reason, but they also still fuck with each other quite a lot. Same thing with the Russians and the Ukrainians, the Russians and the Germans, right? And the Spanish and the Portuguese, right? They all have their little hatred with their brothers and cousins, but at the end of the day, they rally behind their whiteness, right? So,
right, they might have little side fusses that they do, but when it comes time to unite, they're going to put that aside for the sake of white supremacy, for sure.
Yeah. And it's some kind of a universal quality. You see Pakistan and India's got their feud, and Bangladesh too. And then you see in the Middle East, it's not any different, right? There's a whole lot of, everybody's got a whole lot of hatred for their neighbors for for fucking centuries of historical reasons. So
And I forget words matter. I said I was going to stop calling it white supremacy and start calling it white narcissism.
Right.
Because that's
better,
basically
right.
what it is. That's a
Because
better explanation
even framing it like it's supremacy almost gives it the idea that
of being,
that
yeah,
it's actually
exactly.
like, yeah, you're right.
So we got to take them down a notch.
Yeah. So I'll try and make that mental shift in my language too, or verbal as well. So the outcome was the annexation of Ashanti by the British, so that it became blah 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 became a colony of the empire, with its administration undertaken by a chief commissioner under the authority of the governor of the Gold Coast. Ashanti was classed as a colony by conquest. The Ashanti lost their sovereignty, but not the essential integrity of their socio-political system. This is an interesting way that they frame it on Wikipedia, because that socio-political system was a hierarchy that was a class system that was built on the slave system that they had established over the centuries. They weren't the first slaver kingdom there. They actually displaced a slave kingdom before them, and then rose to become the regional hegemony, and then started to deal with the Portuguese and the Spanish or whatever, and the French, and then the English came, and then the English got like really fucking racist and imperialist, and were all like demanded complete submission, and they were like, fuck you, right? And they had this war. So in 1935, limited self-determination for the Ashanti was officially regularized in the formal establishment of the Ashanti Confederacy. The Crown Colony of Ashanti continued to be administered in a scheme with the Greater Gold Coast, but remained nonetheless a separate Crown Colony until it became united as part of the new Dominion named Ghana under the Ghana Independence Act, 1957. So the Golden Stool. The Golden Stool had long symbolized governing power for the Ashanti people. On the 19th of March, 1901, British statesman David Lloyd George stated in a parliamentary session that Frederick Hodgson's quest of the Golden Stool was something like the quest of the Holy Grail. The Member of Parliament of Caernarfon, who knows, as well as other members of the House, were extremely concerned about the huge expense that the House was being made to pay for the war. It always sounds so familiar when you read history. Joseph Chamberlain, then Secretary for the Colonial Office, was questioned extensively as to whether or not Frederick Hodgson had actually been given prior permission to demand the Golden Stool from the Ashanti people, because he seemed to think that if he could only get possession of the Golden Stool, he would be able to govern the country for all time. So this is just, white madness. Instead of like white narcissism, like white psychoticism is another way to put it, right? Hodgson advanced toward Kumasi with a small force of British soldiers and local levies, arriving on the 20th of March, 1900. Ironically enough, that was like yesterday. So Hodgson, as representative of a powerful nation, was accorded traditional honors upon entering the city, with children singing "God Save the Queen" to Lady Hodgson. After ascending a platform, he made a speech to the assembled Ashanti leaders. The speech, or the closest surviving account that comes through an Ashanti translator, reportedly read, "Your king, Prempeh I, is in exile and will not return to Ashanti. His power and authority will be taken over by the representative of the Queen of Britain. The terms of the 1874 Peace Treaty of Fomena, which required you to pay for the cost of the 1874 war, have not been forgotten. You have to pay with interest the sum of 160,000 pounds a year. Then there is the matter of the Golden Stool of Ashanti. The Queen is entitled to the stool. She must receive it. Where is the Golden Stool? I am the representative of the paramount power. Why have you relegated me to this ordinary chair? Why did you not take the opportunity of my coming to Kumasi to bring the Golden Stool for me to sit upon? However, you may be quite sure that though the government has not received the Golden Stool at his hands, it will rule over you with the same impartiality and fairness as if you had produced it." It's like, this is ridiculous that this is like the shit that history tells us about. Like, this is what that's what they did. And even the Golden Stool, to me, I mean, this is maybe going to be like a kind of bigoted sort of thing for me to say, but I feel like the way that they venerated like the Ashanti people, they're creating like a fundamental attribution error. They treat this, I think it says down here or whatever, So this was a singularly foolish speech, an excellent example of the blunders that are made through ignorance of the African mind, or whatever. Gaurav Desai quotes this passage and goes on to clarify that the stool was not seen as a mere physical object and symbol of power, but as a metaphysical and spiritual representation of the soul of the Ashanti people as a whole. And so they're basically saying whoever is in charge of the golden stool is like in charge of the soul of the Ashanti people. And like they had such a superstitious kind of obsession over a chair with gold on it that they claimed came from heaven. And it's like the 700s. And it's like, really? I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, African tribal people, but that's fucking retarded.
And now we have a golden toilet.
No, yeah, like
you use that R word.
I know, I did. Slip out there. But this is ridiculous or whatever. This is a superstitious mindset that people want to revive, and it's like this leads to disaster. This leads to people's domination, because people believed in magical nonsense. You know.
I mean, they still do, and some things can actually be magical. The universe can. I do believe the universe can speak to us through natural waves in the earth and stuff like that.
But being that science you don't understand kind of thing.
Yes, but I just wanted to take the time to say the chat is undefeated. I know you can't see them because you're reading, but they are well informed and are having a good time.
Nice.
I'm learning a lot. Thank you, Jacqueline and Sean.
Informative for you guys. I hope you're enjoying this. I found this all kind of interesting. It's a nice little story of African resistance to colonial dominance, but unfortunately, like these people are not necessarily the heroes that you think that they are. You know what I mean? Let me see. It might be better to get off of Wikipedia and read this one here that I showed, the rise of the Asante Empire. I'm not sure. It might be like a little too much to get into, though. I might want to try and skip ahead to transatlantic slave trade and the Denkira Kingdom. I don't know. There's too much.
If you get into the slave trade, then I'm gonna have to go with my stuff, and I got a lot of stuff up here.
Okay, well, we can do a long show if do you want to do a longer show today, or?
I'm picking up my my little god. Well, I might as well call him my godson. I don't know what else to call him. Nephew. I don't know. My grandson. I'll call him my grandson by proxy.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think
many words.
I'm just trying to skim through here. I don't really think it mentions much of the slavery stuff until, but I think this is an important article as far as establishing, if this is the right one anyway, that the African tribes had established like a class system based on the sale of like their gold and their slaves, and the gold was mined by the slaves, and so it's kind of like all about the slavery. But it's a long story, right? Because there's this Denkira kingdom, and then there's the Bonoman kingdom. They're all like different Akan peoples. And then after the Denkira and the Bonoman kingdoms, then there is the Dahomey nation.
Can you put that link in the back?
Yep.
What? Wait, what?
What's that?
Come here, Black Life. I'm sorry. Another family. Come here, Black Life. I'm sorry. Let me mute myself. You just keep going.
Okay. I just can't really start just in the middle or whatever. Well, actually, this is an interesting little thing about what was the main block, what really hindered Europeans from establishing the slave trade even earlier, was that most of the Europeans, until the 19th century, 25 to 75% of Europeans in West Africa would fall sick and die from diseases like dengue fever. And until they could overcome that, Europeans were limited by biology from their ability to establish the fucking transatlantic slave trade. So maybe I'll start here, and we'll see how long we go. The transatlantic slave trade in the Denkira Kingdom. In the mid-1400s, the Portuguese came into direct contact with West Africans. In 1434, the first Portuguese ships rounded Cape Boiador in Morocco. In 1441, the caravel ship led by Antão Gonçalves returned to Lisbon with slaves and gold. It was the first time Europeans had directly taken slaves from sub-Saharan Africa. The Portuguese started trading in a small scale, which grew over time, with slaves being secondary to other goods, allegedly. However, by the end of the 15th century, the Portuguese were directly taking captured slaves to their colonies on Atlantic islands, particularly Sao Tome, to grow sugar. The Portuguese and other Europeans, as they arrived, could not penetrate far into the African interior, and so formed coastal forts with which to trade with the locals. An early Portuguese explorer described the African jungle as being protected by an angel with a flaming sword of tropical fevers that hindered Europeans. In 1482, the Portuguese established Castelo São Jorge da Mina, or Mina Castle, to trade with the Akan peoples in what is now Ghana. It would be seized by the Dutch in 1637. European forts, which came to be known as factories, would become the processing and loading points for millions of slaves as human cargo. It was the discovery of the New World and the establishment of colonies in North and South America that would see the real birth of the transatlantic slave trade. After 1500, Spanish, French, Dutch, and English traders arrived and began taking slaves in huge numbers. Portugal tried resisting the expansion of other European powers into their West African trading sphere, but had little success. In 1518, the first slaves were taken and shipped directly to Spanish colonies in the Caribbean. This was the birth of the triangular slave trade, a new global market that integrated West Africa into the global sphere. Because Europeans did not have resistance to deadly tropical diseases, they rarely were able to directly capture slaves from the West African coast. So that would be a scientific kind of piece of evidence that is important to take note of, I guess. Instead, they formed trading relationships with native African tribes, cities, and kingdoms who would capture and sell slaves to the Europeans in exchange for manufactured goods. The influx of European muskets dramatically changed the balance of power in West Africa, as those African states, which incorporated muskets into their armies, became powerful and ascendant over their neighbors. A series of devastating conflicts soon shook West Africa as new leaders emerged and many peoples were conquered. As the 16th century led into the 17th, millions of slaves would be taken from their homes as a violent new order characterized West African life. Traditional social hierarchies often collapsed. By the mid-17th century, new states had emerged which were able to grow rich and powerful off of the new system and through trade with Europe. The nation of Dahomey, founded circa 1600, was a slave trading state that made best use of new weapons technology, having a standing army with cannon artillery by the end of the 17th century. Denkira established the first great Akan Empire, seizing and controlling all of the Gold Coast region by 1660. However, other Akan peoples were able to establish direct trade with the Europeans and form powerful states of their own. Akwamu formed north of modern Accra, which they conquered in 1681, and shortly after 1700, they controlled much the eastern seaboard of the Gold Coast. War broke out between Denkira and Akwamu, resulting in the fracturing of Akan peoples in the region. Denkira continued to fight other Akan tribal states such as Asen and Twifo Heman. Denkira's empire was very decentralized, with subordinate chiefs being allowed to continue their rule as long as they paid tribute to the Denkira king as vassals. As Denkira continued in its many conflicts, subordinate vassal chiefs were able to exert their independence and shrug off the authority of their nominal overlords. Finally, we get to the Asante Empire. Fleeing Denkira's hegemony, many smaller Akan tribes moved eastward and settled around the city of Kumasi. By the late 17th century, these Akan peoples were drawn together and were ruled by a single leader called the Kumasahane. Eventually, the Kumasahane became the Asantehane, and the Asante saw themselves as a single united people. Obiri Yaboa was the first prominent Kumasahane, and he enlarged the power of his Oyoko clan by incorporating other local Akan nobility into his family through a combination of force and diplomacy. So as far as combination of force and diplomacy about incorporating other local nobility into their family, that means like your daughter, you better give me your daughter to give to my son or I'm going to murder your tribe kind of shit. Okay? Part of the slavery, human trafficking fucking bullshit. Osei Tutu ruled 1680 to 1717 was the, and this is interesting as far as Desmond Tutu, you see these names start to almost take on a new relevance, a new relevance of their own or whatever. Osei Tutu was the first king of Kumasi to claim the title Asantehane. He would lead the people of Asante and Kumasi to become the dominant power of the Gold Coast. Osei Tutu had the vision and statesmanship to transform the Asante from a subordinate vassal of Denkira to the paramount Akan kingdom. Osei Tutu had spent some time as a resident prince of the Akwamu court, learned of their military tactics, and was able to forge an alliance with that tribe. With support of the Akwamu king, Osei Tutu revolted against Denkira. In battle, the Asante developed pincer formation that aimed to flank the enemy force from the sides and rear. Revolt met with success, blah, blah, blah. In 1698, the favorite wife of Osei was sent to negotiate at the Denkira court as a sign of goodwill. Instead of receiving her honorably, the enemy king raped her. After that, the war between the two kingdoms became much more savage. At the Battle of Fayase, the Asante triumphed decisively over Denkira, bringing total victory. The Denkirahine was killed, and that nation would persist only as a shadow of its former self. The Asante Empire was now the dominant Akan kingdom and soon monopolized trade in the Gold Coast region. Osei used a consultative body, the Kotoko Council, to integrate the leadership of new peoples into the Asante state. This is kind of the way that empire always functions, is they make some kind of governing body that integrates the leadership of the new conquered peoples into the state and in exchange for loyalty. As the empire expanded, incorporated peoples were allowed to join the Asante Union directly or exist as semi-autonomous client states, as long as they pay tribute. With Osei Tutu began the tradition. Here we finally go. Is why sorry, it is a very long-winded whatever for me a bit, but finally getting to this explaining of the golden stool stuff. But as far as understanding historical things, maybe it takes a while to actually have the full picture painted. So, with Osei Tutu began the tradition of the golden stool, a gold-clad ceremonial chair which was the physical embodiment of the entire Asante nation. It was an ancient Akan custom for each family to have a stool signifying the authority of elders, as well as stools indicating a chief's authority in each tribe. The golden stool developed a spiritual and political significance beyond all proportion of this earlier tradition and was said to have miraculous origin. It was so sacred that even the Asantehane could not sit on it. So, they take this fucking object and they turn it into this imperialist, whatever, propaganda piece that is so special that not even the ruler who claims it as legitimacy of his power is not even allowed to sit on it. So it's a chair that's not a chair. It's fucking fucking ridiculous. Sorry. The chief priest and I think basically, I think it's about to say it, but yeah. So the chief priest and spiritual leader of the Asante, Akomfo Enoki, was believed to have called the golden stool down from heaven. The stool houses the soul of the Asante nation and is believed to connect all Asante individuals, those dead, those living, and those yet to be born. As a political symbol, the golden stool was seen to transcend the power of all other stools in the Akan tradition. Why do you think they need to invent some kind of bullshit spiritual story that it's called from heaven? So that you can transcend the power the material, whatever, influence of the traditional system of stools that the tribal leaders used, that kept them from centralizing their power into an imperialist state, slave trading state. So, well, although the tribes maybe, I don't know if they were selling whatever. I shouldn't speak of history. I don't know. So, Azakon tribes were absorbed into the Asante Union. They were made to bury their stools in a sign of deference, right? And that's how this golden stool becomes super, super important. It becomes the holy grail for the fucking British to then go take away from them as a sign of their dominance, right? Osei Tutu led a new campaign against the Akyem kingdom, hoping to bring them into his empire. In 1717, while crossing the river Pra in a canoe, Osei was struck by a bullet from an enemy sharpshooter and died. At least, back in these times, the leaders actually fucking fought with their people. But this would be exactly why they stopped. So he left behind an effective military machine that would create the most powerful kingdom in West Africa. And that would be the legacy that the modern Ghanaian president is apparently appealing to when he goes to cement his relations with the US and the EU and backstabs the colonial struggle in Western Sahara. So you see what I'm saying? As far as just because they are Africans doesn't mean they can't be imperialistic. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sorry, Michael. I wasn't listening at all.
that's okay.
We have a medical emergency.
Yeah, you have to catch up after.
I'm gonna have to watch it later because I'm gonna have to leave and go to the hospital.
Oh, okay. You're something going on with your mom, or
not my mom? Black Life's aunt.
Oh my goodness, someone else.
Someone else. Yes.
Oh man.
She had a heart attack and a stroke.
Shit. Well, hopefully she's all right. I'm not the
praying. They live like an hour away, but they didn't have any beds, so they're on their way here. So we're gonna meet them at the hospital.
Well, I just to.
But I think they just kind of realize where they're going and stuff. So if you have more, I could stay for a second, but I'm not gonna do any of my stuff.
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't. We don't need to do.
I need to get ready.
Yeah, let's not do too long then. I'll try and wrap up here. I think I kind of read enough from this to get to what I was trying to say. I explained a little bit about the origin of the golden stool system, about how it's really just it was a political symbol that was seen to transcend the power of these old stools that the tribes used as a symbol of their authority, whatever. So as like in the imperial tradition all around the world or whatever, they go around conquering these other, like this guy began this tradition. So when he went to go conquer the surrounding tribes, he forced them to bury their stools. And then this golden stool developed a spiritual and political significance beyond all proportion of this earlier tradition. And then it was said to have this miraculous origin of the golden stool came from heaven, and it's the mandate of heaven that we get to rule over you, right? God said so. That's why we have every right to enslave people. So then,
I hate that. Like,
yeah. As far as the religious people acting like we're going to be the ones to end modern slavery, it's like, really? You guys are really actually the root fucking cause of it. So shut the fuck up and sit down, right?
So this is interesting. Okay. Jacqueline just put something in the chat. I'm gonna send it to you so you'll have it.
Okay.
It's not pertaining to what you're talking about, but I think you would be interested in watching it.
I do like Jamarl Thomas. Hopefully he's back. I mean, he had like a stroke or something. So if he's done making content, I perfectly understand whatever. But I did like his point of view. I don't agree with him on
it. This is from 8 years ago, but so
yeah.
I'm gonna text it to you.
I'm just saying, as far as thoughts and prayers for Black Life's aunt, at the
Thank
same
you.
time, thoughts and prayers for Jamal Thomas too, because everyone's having strokes and heart attacks
Yeah.
right now.
And my cousin.
I hope you guys, it's not like boop boop related, you know.
And you know, my mom's high blood pressure has been through the roof. So
This is what people were saying as far as if you took some jabs from the 2019 era, and it would take a few years for some side effects to happen, and all of a sudden now we got some increased incidence of myocarditis sort of stuff. I don't know. I hope not. Just saying.
That's a good point. I wouldn't even think.
Yeah, I might
about
want to ask the
that.
doctors to make sure that they actually factor that in or rule that out properly. So, yeah, exactly. Let's not get carried away.
I wasn't even
I
thinking
didn't
about
say
that.
hello, what's up, Wesley? Had no boop and still managed to have a stroke earlier this year. Yeah. So it's we can't go around. The shot did it every time, but it was definitely something that shouldn't have been to market.
Oh,
Anyway,
Wesley
whole
said he
nother-
had a stroke.
yeah,
Well,
Wesley. Yeah, I actually heard Wesley the other day say he had like 4 heart attacks because of the fast food and stuff. I was watching the boat smashing into other boats. Indie News Network. Check it out if you've never seen it. On Sundays, I believe.
I watch Wesley, like, I know fast food is really easy and quick, but maybe try like cooking at home in bulk and freezing it, and then that way when you don't feel like cooking, all you got to do is pull it out of the freezer and let it thaw, and then you have food that isn't going to, you know, treat you as badly as fast food. It's just a recommendation.
Yep. And I get it. Once you get eating that junk food, eating the healthy food is not actually easy. You have to.
It's not easy at all.
Do it, right? You have to overcome the addiction like you're quitting cigarettes, quite literally. I just wanted to read this quick little paragraph because it like gets into the class dynamic.
Please do.
By the 18th century, the Asante had evolved into a highly stratified society. The nobility and courtiers of the king were the Sikapo, meaning people of wealth in the Twi language. The king and the aristocracy often wore so much gold that they needed special servants to support their limbs. The Asante upper class owned vast estates and hundreds of slaves. Lower class free people were known as Ahiato, who were noticeably shorter than the aristocracy. For the most part, they lived in single-story huts and engaged in agriculture. Slavery was a fact of life in Asante society, and trading slaves with the Europeans was important to the Asante economy. Slaves could lead brutal lives, particularly those who worked in the gold mines or in agriculture. Slaves were rarely offered the dignity of a burial, but simply disposed of after passing. However, not all slaves were of the same status, as there were many levels of servitude. Some individuals served as indentured laborers, which we talked about on Tuesday, for specific periods of time. Liberated slaves could be perfectly integrated into Asante society, where it was often considered taboo to ask about one's family origins. There was a proverb, Obi Nikiere Obi Asi, meaning that no one should disclose the origins of another person. Free men could become influential persons in their community. This was the biggest distinction between European chattel slavery and the slavery practiced by Akan societies. So this is what I was talking about, how the Europeans like put slavery on steroids or whatever, you know? And that's just like, I guess everyone sort of transitioned to doing it the European way or whatever, because it's like that fear of missing out, whatever, you know, like if you don't join them, you can't beat them, you know? So I guess we all have to do like race to the bottom, like the most brutal kind of whatever society possible. So the majority of the gold in the kingdom was this is interesting. Like the majority of the gold in the kingdom was the personal property of the Asantehene, and when wealthy Sikapo died, only a small portion of their gold went to their heirs. So even their wealthy class is like only wealthy as long as like the king gets to own it. And this reminds me of how none of the land in Canada is actually owned by anybody who buys their fucking private property. It's the crown's land. Ultimately,
Technically, we don't own the land here either, because if you don't pay your property taxes, they'll snatch that shit right from under you. Yeah. So if you fall under hard times and you can't keep up, all the money you have spent, all the hundreds of thousands of dollars you have spent for that property, gone.
So that's the capitalism. If it hasn't been exposed as like the worst joke of all time, like private property is not even fucking private. So what are you defending, right? Oh, well, I guess because it's not actually private, we have to actually make a system that actually makes it really actually private, like the libertarians want, right? No, it's never going to happen. Stop pretending like we can make the imaginary, whatever, draw an imaginary line, whoever, make a little square in the dirt and say, this is my dirt, that's your dirt, whatever.
Only the colonizing governments, the Western nations can do that.
Right.
They're
They're the ones who get to see, to hallucinate where the lines actually begin and end, right? And the rest of us are crazy to say, you guys are crazy. I don't see a line there at all. As far as illegal immigrants, I don't see no line. What line you talking about, right? But nationalism is so real that those of you who deny its existence are batshit crazy, right? It's actually just a social construct, but that's a whole philosophical, academic, whatever. So, but because it's not real doesn't mean it can't have a really real effect on the world, right? Let me just. Asante law was enforced by a police force who monitored those who entered and left the kingdom. Punishment could be severe and could involve mutilation or executions. Although Ashanti practiced traditional Khan religion, Muslim advisors from Sahel kingdoms and Arabs were common in court. So I'm gonna be done with that. I'm gonna put the links in the Discord. I forgot to do that last week. My bad. So let me see. As far as the thing about, that's the history from like the 1400s and the 1600s and the 1700s, and we still got child labor and illegal gold mining. We still got slavery today, right? By 2024, about 40% of Ghana's gold output was attributed to small-scale miners, though an estimated 70-80% of those operations remain unlicensed and operate illegally. In Ghana, the mining sector, called Galamsey, child labor is a documented problem. Thousands of children, often aged between 10 and 17, work in these small mines, which are about 40% of the country's gold output. 70-80% of them operate illegally. So this is like a deeply rooted problem as far as slavery, capitalism, racism, whatever, imperialism, colonialism, or whatever. It's all still very much alive and well, unfortunately. And so we've got to be very, not paranoid, but deeply suspicious of people going around making UN calls for reparations when they are basically just a comprador elite, selling their country. So
this is so off topic, but you're talking about capitalism, and I just got to thinking, damn, they got to bring her an hour and a half away because they have no beds in a privatized hospital.
So your Black Life's aunt?
Yeah, in a privatized hospital, no beds.
That's so fucked up. Whatever.
Because they've been downsizing, and in rural areas in this country, they've been closing hospitals altogether. So you gotta go farther out to get to a hospital in a bigger city, because the rural cities are closing.
Right. That's
not the point, but okay.
No, I know it's all ridiculous. It's like I don't have any words anymore. Like, I just wanted to, talking about this golden stool, I wanted to maybe try and end, I skipped the whole story or whatever, but it has like a really depressive, ironic kind of ending to the story, because the British invaded. So I told you that little speech that the British colonizer guy produced this golden stool for me to sit on because Ghana belongs to the Queen now, right? And so then they went and did a genocide. And it was a touchy battle, whatever. Like the British almost fucking lost, you know. But it's like the war cost the British and their allies approximately 1,000 fatalities in total. It led to hundreds of thousands of corpses of savages festering around the fort of Kumasi, whatever. So, yeah, they did a genocide. But this is the kind of thing that, like, the people, like, that maybe led to the end of slavery, whatever, because people were admonishing these for their dismissive attitude towards the Ashanti casualties in the war, noting the golden stool was never captured by the British because they went and buried it, right? Surely human life was worth some respectful treatment. So then by witnessing the genocide that their people were, like one of many genocides that they perpetuated all the way around the world, eventually their conscience, whatever, became guilty enough that the religious societies in the West lobbied to put a legal end to slavery, even though it's not actually over. The golden stool was hidden deep in the forest for the duration of the war, with the British continuing to seek it until 1921. Shortly after this, it was accidentally uncovered by a team of laborers who took the golden ornaments that adorned the stool and left the rest, which is of wood. So it's been like mutilated as the symbol of power, but guess what they still do? Ashanti court sentenced the laborers to death for the desecration, but British officials intervened and arranged for their exile instead. And now this throne is used again to this day to pretend like this whatever royal family is still like something instead of nothing. And we gotta like talk about the Freemasons, where it seems like the Freemasons are involved in like this fucking cucking of the royal families of the indigenous, you know what I mean? So I don't know, this is written kind of conspiratorial or whatever, but it's just funny when you look at all these other facts that I'd kind of touched on today. And we've covered like the Freemasons before. The suspicions, the conspiracy theories about the Freemasons are most likely true. That's all I'm saying. So congratulations to Atumfo Osei Tutu II on his 25th anniversary as Asantehene, the king of Asanteman. The last few weeks has seen a display of a magnificent culture of a people and the exemplary leadership skills of a great man, hitherto known in private life as Barima Kwaku Dua, who was enthroned as the 16th Asantehene in April 1999. A spectacular series of events showcasing Asanteman, the greatness of the current occupant of its throne, and highlighting how a single individual can inspire a group of people in the public would rather conclude in an anticlimax. A stark reminder to all of us that the modern Asante monarchy and many others remain vassal thrones with only cultural autonomy. Historically great African monarchs like the King of Asante, Zulu, or Hausaland, no matter how ceremonial their status may be, should not be subjugated to the dictates of any fraternal order or sorority, be they Arabian, Western, Asian, etc. It is worthy to note some of the terrific achievements of Nana Osei Tutu II, least of which is his wise counsel and seamless collaboration with many stakeholders, including civilians and military, both in private and public sectors here in Ghana and abroad. Atumfo's education fund, a scholarship scheme which was initiated more than 2 decades ago, primarily for underprivileged Asantes and Ghanaians, is another great achievement of the Venerable Asantehene. You see how they got their philanthropy, whatever, even though they're conquered people or whatever. In addition, Atumfo Osei Tutu has managed to elevate an aspect of Ghanaian culture to the consciousness of many Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians worldwide. There's rediscovery of pride and cultures on display in Akweside, celebrated at the forecourts, whatever. Sorry, this is more the point. The Anglican Church and the Asante monarchy. Generally, sororities and fraternal organizations exist primarily to serve as networking platforms for its members, and in a world where relationships could take a person much farther than actual merit, any individual has the free will to join any organization for whatever benefits they seek. In fact, should any such organization exist in the animal kingdom, anybody should have the free will to join as they wish. Fraternal orders, commonly known as lodges in Ghana, whether Roman Catholic, like the Knights of Columbus, Oddfellows, Freemasons, are basically networking platforms to benefit its members and pursue whatever additional goals for which they exist. It appears that one of the conditions the British attached to the reconstitution of the Asante Confederacy by Atumfo Agyeman Prempeh II was to remodel the monarchy after the British crown by adopting the Church of England as its mother church and the Masonic Grand Lodge of England as its fraternal order, thus tying the Asante monarchy to the British crown forever. So it's possible that this is all just like the ravings of a madman, but the fucking Freemasons and the British crown, they have their hands in too many whatever like genocides around the world and shit for me to be completely dismissing this. So Otumfo Osei Tutu's 25th year on the throne would also be his 25th year of membership in Ghana's Masonic Lodge, meaning that he inherited his membership as part and parcel of the throne upon his ascension. Interestingly, the British forgot to include in the inheritance the plenty of gold and other more important resources looted with which they're now asking from the United Nations, which would aid the development of Santiman and by extension Mother Ghana. So there's these fucking monarchists, whatever, like these guys remind me of the Iranian monarchists diaspora in the US asking for Pahlavi to be reinstated by the the Americans that have been harboring him. So I guess it wasn't in this article, but
Are you talking that fast to get through it?
Yeah,
for
sorry.
the sake of time?
Yeah.
Oh,
Just because I was this Asante, this new Asantehane or whatever, the monarchy of the Ghana Empire from back in the day. I don't know which of the sources it was. Maybe it's a Wikipedia thing, but it says that so prior to his installment on Wikipedia, it says he worked in the private sector in the United Kingdom, building a professional career in accounting and management. And now he is this figurehead in Ghana after rising to the throne. Since ascending the Golden Stool, Osei Tutu II has overseen a period marked by institutional strengthening of traditional governance, peace-building and development-oriented initiatives. Chaired the Committee of Eminent Chiefs, which played a central role in resolving the Dagbon chieftaincy crisis, culminating in the restoration of peace in 2019. So he's acting like a mediator for like conflict, like factions feuding in Ghana and stuff. So they act like it's symbolic, except for when it's like actual diplomatic and political role, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he worked in the U.S. He's a founder of the Otufo, Osei Tutu Foundation, which focuses on education, health, and youth development. It's always this eugenic, whatever, focus on health, education, and children, right? He served as the chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And I thought I read that he had worked in like the US and Canada somewhere. But that's enough of that. That's all I'm saying is like the Ghanan king went and learned how to be in like an accountant in the UK and then did business in the US and Canada and then rose to the throne to present traditional values when he went to learn how to be in the modern West, how to be a modern capitalist. Don't trust monarchism. It's dead. It's over, right?
Did we ever trust monarchism?
Some people still do.
Some people did. Some people still do. That's true.
Yeah.
What kind of question was that?
If you haven't noticed, monarchism is like one of my primary like axes that I grind. It's like if I have any kind of something I want to say that like I achieved in life, whatever it would be, the putting the final nails in the coffin of monarchism, if not capitalism, right? So yeah, I think that's it for today. Sorry for my roller coaster, or whatever.
You did fine. My anxiety is high, you know.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna let you sign off. Let me see if there's a video I could play or something. I don't know. Oh, we can go back to reparations. There's this little video. It's not that long. If you want me to play that while we're signing off. Okay.
Yeah, whatever you want.
So let me figure that out.
And maybe we should give Wesley a wrench if you want, if he's gonna You want to
Oh,
come back?
Wesley doesn't have a wrench
See, I just noticed his name is sticking out to me because it's not blue.
because it's not blue, huh?
Yeah.
Wesley should have a wrench.
Thanks for watching,
Let
you
me
guys.
fix that right now. Yeah. So I was supposed to pick up my. Oh, she said new paper. Okay. So I'm going to I guess go see my cousin and my aunt tonight. And I was supposed to pick up my little baby tomorrow, but I got to figure out what's going on with that because maybe that's not a good idea. I don't know. We had like a fun-filled weekend plan. Let me see if I can give you a wrench, Wes. Because he's like a day one. I don't know why he doesn't have a wrench.
Well, he just might not be. He hasn't been like watching our show as often as some of the others. He hasn't been commenting quite as much.
I don't think so.
Nothing wrong with that, right? I just probably only got so much time in the day, and there's other people are often live at the same time as us. So, thank you for joining us tonight, Wesley.
All right. I got you, Wes. You straight. Oh, he said I've been inconsistent. And that's your right. Because it's not your job to be consistent. That's Michael and my job.
Oh yeah,
if someone wants to come on as a counter co-host when we can't, that slot is always open.
I was just the last thing I was showing was this. It was more of like a newsghana.com or whatever. It was talking about the Freemasons and stuff, but it wasn't like a very scholarly kind of. It was like more of like a amateur sort of accusations. So I'm just showing this headline here. This is way too much to get into right now. Maybe we'll come back to it. The history of slavery by Freemasons and Knights Templar. So the fact that the Freemasons lodges are still a big thing around the world today, whatever, and then there's very likely links, documented links to slavery throughout history. We got to get rid of these. And that JFK speech, whatever, about secret societies are abhorrent and shit. Let's do away with secret societies. You know, as much as I like to talk about capitalism and communism and stuff, whatever, like what seems to be missing from that conversation is like the more conspiratorial or whatever influence of the secret societies, you know. Even some people would say like Marx himself was a Freemason or whatever. They got this thing about people with their hands, one hand in the pocket of their coat vest, or the thing like the Illuminati does with covering their eye or whatever. So like these are like the little signs that people use to show that they're in the cult or whatever. So if we want our political systems to work, they can't be run by cults, you know, at the very least. So let's talk about the Freemasons one of these days too. So, but I'm just kind of, I'm just talking to fill the air now at this point. So if you want the final words, Abby?
Okay. I'm flustered. Just thank you everyone for your kind words. I really appreciate it. What I really wanted to do, and we still have to talk about this, I put together this, I wanted to take like the 11 demands from Eric. I wanted to take I think they call it the Contract of Black America. I wanted to go on like the Green Party website for their policy and like try to put together something. I kind of got it already laid out and try to put together something so we can have an open discussion about what would our demands be, and who would we give them to?
Yeah.
Like who would we get to look at them and say, hey, I think this is something that we could move forward with, because
Well, yeah.
when we talked about every empire must fall, I mean, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. It looks like we might have a chance to redesign what we think um, this Western civilization should look like. So um, I'm going to be working on that. It's going to take me a while though, but we could start. We could start with like a first few demands, add on to them, and then just keep going in
Yeah.
our open discussions. If you would be interested in that,
It's a good idea. It might take a little while. It might
it's going
not
to take
seem
a
like
little
you're
while.
getting too far at first, but once you get those really clear, really powerful demands, then it
What
makes
I
things
have it as
right.
oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying it
So
makes
I
it easy.
have it as like demands on the demands, and then at the top, if you use Excel spreadsheets, you can separate the demands by. I have laws, monetary, social, economic. So we could also talk about how you separate each demand by category in each of these categories, um,
To me,
and try
monetary and
to
economic.
feel something very comprehensive.
Yeah, monetary and economic, I would put on the same category, but
I
other
thought
people
about that too. Okay.
it's worth it to talk about that to see if other people will have a reason to separate them. Right? There is a monetary
Yeah.
and a fiscal policy, I guess, for whatever reason. So
Oh, so we could say like maybe we could say local versus global economic policy. We don't have to talk about it.
we'll figure it out. Yeah, not right
We'll
now. We
figure
don't.
it out.
We can wrap up and then
I just
maybe
wanted to
on
say,
Tuesday.
like, I think that would be good for us. Um, I'm too flustered to say anything else, but thank you, family. And I gotta go get ready. I gotta go get dressed.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, then, thank you all for joining us. Have a good weekend. Keep up the fight. Have a good night.